The agenda this week reflected on the federal government's pseudo-scientific purge of gay employees, track China's rise in the 21st century, and assess the province's efforts to search out fiscal misdeeds committed by the previous government. The agenda's Week in Review begins following the path of asylum seekers arriving in Canada at irregular border crossings.
I think remains this persistent and pernicious perception of asylum seekers as this onslaught of humanity running amok, running into the country. You don't know who they are. They could be criminals. We have no idea.
This is a myth, I take it.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and yet it becomes so sticky.
Sticky meaning it doesn't go away.
It sticks around, yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
How come?
I think it could be, Andrea could speak to this more than I could. It could be that it's seductive from a public perception perspective. It could be that it's politically lucrative to stoke it. It's a concern. There's no question that, you kind of like everyone who comes in, Canada screens for criminality, for, their identity. And, I'm sure there are good reasons to do that. But this idea of people running amok has never been the case.
Let me ask Andrew about that. Do you see politicians in this country today stoking that issue in the way that Anna just described?
And that's 100% correct. Listen, it was stoked in our country before Donald Trump by the Conservative government. The Harper government stoked those flames.
How about today? Any
today
party
we
or
see
people doing it today?
We're seeing it in the province of Quebec. The leadership debate of a few weeks ago were centered fundamentally as being, I think, an anti-immigrant debate.
I have to take issue with that because I think there are a lot of people where they take no issue with people coming in to immigrate. They welcome immigrants, but what they want is for the Canadian government to having control of our borders and to run a system the way that works the way it's supposed to. And the problem is when we see a number of people engaged in what fundamentally is asylum shopping, and then not having hearings for 2 or 3 years, I think people are aware that it creates a big window for abuse. And it's a very small number of people who abuse the system. But back in 2015, we had an asylum system that scheduled hearings within 60 days. And if it failed, you had an appeal heard within a few months. And now if you file a claim, you're going to wait a couple years for a hearing. An appeal would be another year. A judicial review can take another 3 to 9 months. And so...
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells us the system is broken and the government has failed to act, I think, nearly quickly enough. They only funded the system in 2018 when they should have started moving in 2017. And people perceive that we've created an opportunity to come into Canada and work here for a few years, even if your claim isn't valid. And it's bad for the asylum seekers, too. No one wants to come here and wait 2 years to resolve your claim and to bring your family.
But that's not a challenge for, that's a problem of the failure of the state. It's not a problem for the asylum seeker. I don't think we should be blaming the victim here.
Exactly.
We shouldn't be. But I think...
But the idea is that the federal government isn't blameless in this situation. Like it's participating in the stoking of xenophobia by allowing the perception of uncontrolled migration and of a system that's broken to continue. And I've heard that before, that people have asked, why didn't the government move in to better fund the Immigration and Refugee Board earlier?
And what's the answer?
I think, honestly, they didn't think it was as big a deal as it turned out to be.
Yeah, because in the last year budget, they didn't give resources to the Immigration and Refugee Board. They did funding to review the Immigration and Refugee Board. And in this year, that's when they start implementing the funding to the Immigration and Refugee Board. We have an excellent system. We have some challenges, but I believe the refugee system that Canada has is one of the that has leadership around the world. It's one of the best around the world. Yeah, I don't think that we need to blame the number of people coming. If you see, we need to do a comparison. Canada brought in 2015 25,000 refugees resettlement from Syria.
Yes.
How many refugee resettlement are in this year right now? Less than 9,000. And one of the people is still the number of refugees around the world is higher. Why not Canada continue bringing more refugee resettlement, and you could see what is the balance with refugee claimants.
Did the Prime Minister exacerbate this when he put that tweet out essentially saying The doors are open. Come on in. We welcome everyone.
I mean, it's impossible to know to what extent it factored. I think the combination of Canada being seen as welcoming and the U.S. seen as hostile has contributed, and we should be seen as welcoming. The issue isn't that we're welcoming refugee claimants. The issue is that we've failed, this government has failed to fund and manage the system to ensure that only genuine refugee claimants are able to stay in Canada for a long period of time after they arrive. What we have is a system where everyone who makes a claim can stay for years, and that's causing people to lose faith in this government and in our asylum system.
I think everybody at this table appreciates political rhetoric as much as the next guy. However, Melissa, I do want to go to you first on this. The worst political cover-up in the province's history. Is that accurate?
Look, I think Doug Ford has a responsibility to educate voters about how big a deficit $15 billion actually is. And more than that, when McGuinty came into government in 2013, the debt was
2003.
2003, 15 years ago, the debt was at $130 billion. We have now doubled that. So we're in the 300s, more than doubled that. So we're now in the 300s. And, if there was, new roads and state-of-the-art bridges and climbing math scores and hospitals that didn't have people waiting in the hallways, there wouldn't be a lot of MPPs standing around Queen's Park saying, "What did that more than $200 billion get us?"
That is a wonderful answer, but nowhere in that answer is actually the answer to the question that I asked, which is, was this in fact the worst political cover-up in Ontario history, as Doug Ford suggested?
I think that $15 billion is something that they need to get to the bottom of, that's for sure.
Kevin, what do you say?
Absolute nonsense. I mean, I think you're seeing a man that's struggling, a man that's not fit to be premier, has overpromised and now has to underdeliver and is looking for a scapegoat. And that, part of that is, that's how the game's played sometimes. If there's a transition, you get into office, you blame the bad guys that came before you. That gives you about 6 months to a year. But what's particularly galling about this is the use of the Select Committee. And it really, to me, demonstrates how unfit Premier Ford is to be Premier of this province. There's a lack of understanding of what a Select Committee is. You look at the traditions, you go back through the history of that place. And when you form a Select Committee, it's when parties are working together for something that you need to put your membership card to the side for. Mental health and addictions, developmental services, aging, Ontario's role in Confederation, renewable energy.
This is not that?
This is a witch hunt. This is the Spanish Inquisition. This is Ontario's Inquisition.
Well, hang on, Spanish Inquisition. No one's going to die here. Oh. So let's...
Hey, this is Doug Ford.
It's political rhetoric.
Sherry, what's your view on whether or not this is a legitimate political exercise to get to the bottom of the province's finances?
This is a rear guard action in a war that's already been won, Steve. Not only that, it's already been investigated at a committee. I chaired that committee. It's called Estimates. We had Liz Sandals, who was the head of Treasury, come before that committee. Bonnie Lysyk, in her original analysis, I think was dead on, and we should let her be auditor, not Doug Ford. She said the Liberals were out. Absolutely, they were. And when I was chair of Estimates, we grilled them. They moved money into OBG. There's no question about it. They looked at the pension funds as not being being an asset when it wasn't. These are obvious mistakes. She said $5 billion worth. This has been done. We did it. So this is just ideological, and quite frankly, it's going to come back to bite the Conservative Party because they're going to have to justify their spending, and they've got a real revenue problem. If they're going to take out cap and trade, if they're going to privatize the sale of pot, if they're going to privatize, assets like the LCBO that bring in $2 billion a year, plus fight all the court challenges they've got, plus tear up contracts for wind energy with Tesla, et cetera, they've got a real problem, and Bonnie will be on their case just as much as she was on Wins. So I look forward to the findings.
Patrice.
I like the idea. I like the idea of having a select committee on this for a number of reasons. It wasn't a cover-up. We all knew it. We all knew. I mean, this was part of the election campaign. We knew that the $6 billion deficit that was projected by the Liberals was wrong.
So just to clarify, this was not the biggest cover-up in Ontario.
No. We knew it, and the Tories campaigned on it. They, the issue around the Auditor General. The Auditor General spoke out against the calculations of the Liberal government. Everything was on the table. We know all that. Now, why a select committee like this? I think it's a good idea, and I think that the moment has come to take aside some time, ask parliamentarians to focus on a particular issue. And this is an opportunity to step back and say, look, is there something wrong with our parliamentary committee?
Sarah, the fruit machine refers to what?
The fruit machine, in its essence, was devised as a scientific tool to detect homosexuality in the 1960s in Canada.
It was a real thing, a real scientific tool?
I'm not sure how scientific it was,
No
but
kidding.
it was real.
Huh. The word fruit, obviously, is a derogatory term for gay people. No issues about putting that in the title of the movie?
No, I've always loved the title. It's provocative to me. I hope on some level viewers will take that it's a metaphor for the larger 4-decade campaign as opposed to being directly related to the scientific device.
Just looking at you, I'm going to take a wild stab here that you were not old enough to actually have been alive when any of this happened.
Correct.
So I want to know how you heard about it in the first place.
I was following a lead on another story that I thought might be interesting. I had read in the Ottawa Citizen about what would have been the first LGBT retirement home at the time, and this was about 15 or 16 years ago. And I went and spoke to the gentleman who was behind that project, George Hartsgrove, who's still based in Ottawa. And through that conversation, he had told me that he was afraid that his business venture was going to fail because the same cohort of men and women that he was marketing to were the same men and women who had their sexuality driven underground during the fruit machine era. And I had never heard that term before. So we talked for another hour and had another coffee, and I just became completely committed to the story. I was wondering, you know, where all of these men and women were, what happened to their lives, and I was just committed to getting this film made.
John, I must confess that I had not heard about this story until I read about it in the pages of the Globe and Mail, thanks to you. How well known was it before you started writing about it?
Well, it wasn't known to me at all, that's for sure. I don't think it was all that well known at all, nor was the case of Everett Clippert, which actually got us from A to B. I had stumbled across the Clippert case. People who know LGBT issues well, especially the history of LGBT issues, would know about Clippert, but I hadn't. He was the man who was sentenced to life in prison in the 1960s. And the Supreme Court upheld that life sentence simply because he was gay, for no other reason than that. And it was the controversy over Clippert that caused Pierre Trudeau to say the state has no place in the bedrooms of the nation. I became fascinated by Clippert and wanted to tell his life story and what happened and how he managed to get himself sentenced to life in prison. Once we did that, and it became clear that there were other issues involved as well. Could we get a pardon, a posthumous pardon for Clippert? Could we get a pardon for all of the men who had been convicted of felonies just because they were gay up until legalization in 1969? Was the pardon even right? No, it shouldn't be a pardon. It should be expungement. There's nothing to pardon. And then that kind of moved in. Well, what else was going on at the time? Oh my God! Look at all the people. And there was a well-documented campaign to dismiss people from the public service, from the military. I kept walking into my editor's office and said, "You're not going to believe this, but here's what they were doing." In a way, for shame on the Globe and Mail and for shame on me that it took us so long to realize what was going on around us, especially back in those days. But finally, we sort of stumbled onto it and began writing stories about it.
Well, maybe you could help us with what seems like an obvious question. Why did the Canadian military and/or government consider homosexuality to be a security threat back then?
The ostensible reason was that they were at risk of being blackmailed by the Russians. So after the Second World War, when the Cold War launched, there was a fear that people in the military and the public service, especially in foreign affairs, would be compromised, would be blackmailed, and would give up secrets. I don't believe, actually, that any of that was the real motivation. I think it was just a witch hunt and nothing but a witch hunt.
When you got pulled aside for interrogation, a man or a woman doing it?
It was two.
Two men?
It was a man and a woman.
Oh, a man and a woman?
Yes.
How long did it last?
Oh, God, I can't really imagine. I don't remember too much details. It was probably at least 2 or 3 hours.
Can I guess it wasn't too much fun?
No, you were terrified, and the longer the questioning went on, the angrier I got, because I just knew it was wrong. And that's what I'd said. It's Canada. This just doesn't happen in Canada. We're not a third world country. We've always known for being more advanced, more open-minded. And it just, it shocked me to my core that this was even occurring, that it should even matter.
Does the word communism mean anything to millennials in China today?
Yeah, I think, millennials today think of communism more in an instrumental fashion, right? You join the party not necessarily because you believe in communism, but because you want to advance. You want to signal that you are on the right side of politics, that you're a good citizen, and that's why you join the Communist Party. Now, there is that term, actually, to refer to the millennial generation in China today. They're called the Zen generation. Why? Because everything's kind of blasé, everything's basic, and they're not so super politically engaged. And so I have a hard time thinking that these people of the Zen generation are all that concerned with communism. They're probably more concerned about taking selfies and posting it on WeChat.
Oh my goodness. Now, when you were there, would a young person have taken that approach to the word communism or what it meant to be a communist back then?
When I was first there, no. I mean, it was very serious. This was pre-Tiananmen, and which happened in '89. That changed everything, and it sent the party into more than a decade of trying to figure out what had happened, what had caused society to almost to collapse, what had happened, what had caused the political system almost to collapse. So they widened the party greatly. They allowed all kinds of people, including entrepreneurs, to become party members. The party went from several million to 70 million. And they decided that instead of having a democracy as we have it, where you have different parties contesting, they would have what they call intra-party democracy, democracy inside the party. So you could debate really key issues. I mean, we sometimes think that they don't debate things in China. They do. There are people who are who worry about climate change and are environmentalists, and there are industrialists who say, no, we've got to keep the economy growing at this level, and we're going to have to cut some corners here and there. But these parties happen within the party. These
debates happen within the
party, and then once they're settled, they're settled. And I think Diana's absolutely right. I'd meet people who were joining the party like you'd join a service club here or get on a board. It helps your CV, but people don't take it seriously. And the party, I think, recognizes this. And their deal with the Chinese people is, we will provide stability. You're going to get health care. You're going to get education. You're going to get your own condo. And in return, we'll take care of the government. It's like that old slogan from when I was young, where the bus company said, leave the driving to us. For the Communist Party, it's leave the governments to us, and things are going to be okay otherwise. And so far, that's worked. Well,
of course, does raise the question, what if you don't want to leave the driving to us? And that gets us, I want to move our conversation now into something, we actually, it's funny, they had the same expression in Canada many decades ago, social credit. There was a government in British Columbia called the social credit government. This is very different. I'd like you to explain to us this new and hugely controversial approach they're taking in China called social credit. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, the social credit system is new to all of us, and it is indeed controversial. And what it is that you have to understand that China has gone through so much rapid change that everybody in society is facing common problems, like consumer scams, right? They go online, they buy something, they get cheated. Or they're facing someone who behaving very badly in public. And so what the social credit system does is it punishes people that are bad citizens. It punishes companies that are cheating consumers by deducting points. And conversely, if you do something good, like get a good citizenship award, you get points for it.
And you can literally look on your smartphone and see your social credit score, right?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you can. I've seen it.
You have, okay.
Yeah. What do you have to do that's bad in order to have your score reduced?
There can be a number of things. You can violate traffic laws. So that seems okay, yeah, no one wants to violate traffic laws, and we all want to know who's violating traffic laws. But there are other, a little bit more worrying things that you can get deducted for, such as criticizing the government online. And I think that's what worries some observers looking at the social credit system.
When this is fully implemented, it is going to kind of, reach tentacles into many, many aspects of the average Chinese person's life. They think at the end of the day it will create a more harmonious society. What do you think?
Well, that's the really interesting thing about it. We tend to think, again, in terms of the state and the people. But social credit is something that is being implemented throughout the Chinese society and throughout the economy. So that if you, for example, had a meltdown on an airplane, you were mad about having to line up or not getting your seat, and I used to see that happen on a weekly basis. then the airline recognizes you when you go to check in. You might not get a ticket on your next flight. So banks and airlines and service providers, the Uber equivalent in China, could recognize this. So people are going to feel the difference. And as Diana said, this concern about a breakdown of sort of civic behavior, civic decency, is very real.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, October 5th, 2018. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety on our website, that's tvo.org, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, and on our Twitter feed, that's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.